All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, season 4. I am your host, Jack, joined by my guest,
Mr. Solis.
Yes, we are back here a week later, obviously, because there was WWE's Payback event. There was AEW All Out. So much to talk about that has occurred within that 1 week span. But before getting into that, how have you been, sir?
I've been all right. Jack, it's September, new month, right? My freshmen at school, I believe, are beginning to show their true colors. You know, the honeymoon phase is over, and my team, my teacher team, doing the absolute best they can, and I'm still hopeful about this school year.
All right.
How about you?
I've been doing pretty well, as I was explaining to Mr. Solis before we started recording. Was just doing some math homework for my class, and then other than that, I went to a class today. Pretty simple stuff. So far so good. You know, we haven't really got into the meat of it yet, like haven't gotten into a lot of the work yet. A lot of it's just been, different readings or, going over, the basic stuff first. So it's been doing pretty good. And just to update the listeners, Dominic, Gio, and I are still trying to get a date set for when we can record, because things are very difficult now that Dom's up there. Not only he's up there in Berkeley, but he's now sharing a dorm with someone, so he doesn't have the free space. So just want to update the listeners, because it has been a while since the three of us have recorded. And it's because we're trying to find time between all three of our schedules.
I saw an Instagram post that Dom and Gio were fighting backstage, Jack. Word on the street is one confronted the other.
Oh, man. And word on the street is Dominic's one of those youngsters who doesn't take advice from the veterans. And despite being told many times, refuses to black out his license plate anytime he posts his car.
Oh, gosh. Well, you know what? I've posted pictures of my car, and I go, you know what? Like, if I'm parked in a public lot, everyone can see your license plate,
Yeah. But it's so funny that, like, people have told him, and every time he's like, "No, I'm fine."
Jeez. Well, I think I'm pretty guilty of that, too.
But getting into the meat of this episode, obviously, as I mentioned, WWE Payback occurred. And real quickly, sir, I think it would be proper to bring it up now, given we didn't get to bring it up last week simply because of time restrictions and all that. And honestly, I think it's best that we bring it up here, discussing the pay-per-view of, the place he simply knew as home. The big thing we didn't get to talk about last week was the sad passing of Bray Wyatt. Wyndham Rotunda occurred. Mr. Solis and I wanted to talk about it, but with as long of pay-per-views as they have, it's a struggle to fit everything into the time that we have with AEW. So I think it's, like I said, I think it's better to bring up here with a WWE pay-per-view, because obviously that's where he wrestled a majority of his career. But yeah, very tragic news that took everyone off guard.
And something we take for granted, Jack. 3 years ago, Roman Reigns started his record-breaking Universal title run, right, at Payback, beating Bray Wyatt for the title.
Yeah.
So, this one really hits close to home, a lot like Brody Lee. And thinking about it in the last week, it really got me remembering about when Eddie Guerrero died in 2005. I was about your age, And it was definitely one of those gone too soon, Yeah. He wrestled like the Friday before he died, so we had just seen him.
Yeah, and I saw people give the Eddie comparisons too, simply for the reason that this has been the first time, obviously, in WWE, that a member of the roster has passed away while still active and on the roster. Like, people throw out different examples, but a lot of those people were gone from the company when they passed away.
Right.
Yeah.
So we learned that he had a heart condition that was exacerbated by COVID in January, right?
Yeah.
This is something that they weren't public with. They didn't go into a lot of details about. We just heard he's, recovering from a medical issue.
Yeah, and something I told Mr. Solis last week that I want to bring up here, like the part that hit the hardest was simply that if you go back on this podcast to about a year ago, when Extreme Rules happened and he made his return, you can hear the excitement from Mr. Solis and I talking about, his return, talking about the plans that could occur from it all,
Yeah. And I don't know if you've gone back to watch his promos that he did in like November where he's talking to the crowd as himself, right?
Yeah.
Almost like as Wyndham. They're very like, I don't know, they just hit different now.
Yeah, even some of his older ones that like taken within the context, like I saw someone post a very old one from his days in NXT where he was like, if you ever want to like speak or like something, I forgot what he said, but like I think it was like if you ever want to speak to Bray Wyatt, all you got to do is look to the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very, very tragic, very caught off guard by it all. Just like you said, it was very similar to what AEW had to go through when Brody Lee passed away back in 2020,
And it's a cynical thought, but I think that WWE's tribute to him on the Friday before last was as poignant as it was because AEW did it first for Brody. Like, I think if AEW doesn't do the Brody tribute show that they did, they wouldn't have put as much effort as they did into this one.
Yeah.
Which might not be true because Triple H is in charge, but, God, they flew out Eric Rowan for it again,
Yeah.
And they just, he did a lot more than they usually do. Maybe because he was a current superstar. But I'm really grateful for all that they did do. And I'm most grateful for, during sort of that moment of silence, how great is it that the crowd on their own started to sing He's Got the Whole World in His Hands.
Yeah, that was real great stuff.
Now, I was thinking not every wrestler has something that like people can chant, a unique chant for him, and he did.
Yeah, and there was a lot of I really enjoyed what a lot of them did. You brought it up to Marco when we were talking last week that it was cool to see them do the Fiend's first opponent versus his last opponent with Balor versus LA Knight. That was real cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so very good stuff from their end with the tribute, and just caught us so off guard, and I wanted to give it its own dedicated time to talk about, obviously.
And I posed the question to you and your brother last week, Jack. What was your favorite Bray Wyatt moment or match, promo?
Yeah, so my brother and I have the same answer in that it's that promo package that they did for him and John Cena at WrestleMania.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that promo package so much, and I always look back to like when someone was talking about promo package and they brought that one up, they were like, it shouldn't work. Like a lot of it shouldn't work, especially some of the lines from Eminem's song in it. Like it.
I was about to say it was the one with the Eminem song.
Yeah, like some parts of it shouldn't work, but yet they put it together so beautifully, and then the content itself, like the stuff between Bray Wyatt's promos and John Cena, it just works together so well, and I really enjoy it. And anytime I watch it, I always say to myself, I wish this match, this feud, and this promo package, I wish there was a way to save it for a future where this was John Cena's retirement match, because it just serves so perfectly as a retirement like promo package that like this is John Cena's final match. It has like that big feel to it, like the whole talk of his legacy, and wanting to put his legacy on the line. Like to me, I just wish that was possible. But at the same time, it's just so great. I love that video package.
I'm gonna watch it right after we log off here, just because I love that song and that promo. And it was like, he should have won that match. He wins like in Extreme Rules a month after. He should have won that night.
Yeah. When I learned the news, that was the first thing I posted for Bray Wyatt was that promo, because I was like, this was one of the earliest showcases at how great he is, how creative he is, just so good.
Hey, and my favorite is the Firefly Funhouse match he had with John Cena a couple of years later.
Yeah.
For all the same reasons you described, Sarah. The build up, the creativity, right? This is right before we pick up this podcast, sir, from when we left in 2019. You and me, we jumped on Zoom to talk about that weird WrestleMania that no one attended and that weird match that happened in John Cena's mind. You know what I mean? It was great. It was so good.
Yeah. And honestly, I gotta give credit to for this podcast creation to Bray Wyatt, simply because when the pandemic hit, the school podcast went on pause, and the entire time we were just like, man, like it sucks that we can't podcast together no more and all that. And it was because of WrestleMania. I forgot how it came up, but Ricardo watched it. I ended up watching it. My dad and brother ended up watching it. You ended up watching it. And we came together and said, hey, there's this thing called Zoom, or I think maybe at the time we may have been using Google Meets or Google Hangout, one of these options, and we said, hey, why don't we get together and talk about this? For the school podcast, we meet together online, and that ended up sparking where you and I now meet anytime a pay-per-view happens and talk about it. That sparked Dom and I saying, hey, even though the pandemic's going on, let's continue this podcast and let's meet over Discord and talk with one another and record it. So very much so, I'll give credit to Bray Wyatt, because that was our first meeting of talking about wrestling.
And I tell you what, maybe if it wasn't so outlandish and so creative, maybe we wouldn't have immediately thought to talk about it. But we watched something like the Firefly Funhouse match and think, I have to talk to somebody about what just happened.
Yeah, after watching that, literally all of us sat there and said, okay, no, we have to meet together, because how else are you supposed to react and just go on with life after watching that? You got to talk about it with someone.
We were all Titus O'Neil as soon as that match ended. Remember his face?
Yeah, he was he had a hand on
his hand.
Yeah, oh man, yeah. That is a great memory from Bray Wyatt as well, because I'll just never forget Ricardo texting me like his live reactions basically while watching, and the entire time both of us were just like, what is going on right now? Oh man, yeah. Bray Wyatt had some great stuff, and
he did.
Similar to when Brody Lee passed. It's just heartwarming and amazing to see how much good people have to say about him.
Yep.
And to me, I have to shout out a lot of the members of the roster that took me by surprise at how much Bray impacted their lives. I don't know if you caught some of the talking heads that WWE released. I think the full compilation that they have now is 30 minutes, I think. But there's people like Otis talking on there. You wouldn't think too much about Otis having any interactions with Bray, especially because they never interacted on camera. But
right.
He shared his experiences and how Bray had an impact on him. You saw people like Bayley and Becky talking about Wyatt's influence and stuff. So it was just heartwarming to see how much of a great guy he was and how far his impact was spread around the locker room.
Yeah, I've only seen a couple. I don't think I have the strength to watch them all, but I've heard a lot of great things come out of them, like Otis' story.
Yeah, pretty great stuff from all around. But getting into the pay-per-view now, like we mentioned, WWE Payback. A lot of interesting matches on the card, and the first one is Becky Lynch versus Trish Stratus in a steel cage match.
Yep, a big blow-off to their feud that basically has been going on since right after WrestleMania.
Yeah, and pretty surprising to me to see Trish in a cage match.
I didn't realize it. She's never been in one.
Yeah, I was about to say I think Lita's been in one, but I just may be remembering one where she interfered on behalf of the Hardys.
Yeah, right? Because, you think if she was in one, who would she be fighting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so, like you said, we've got this story that's been building for a while. We're looking to get a big blow-off match out of it with this steel cage match. What were your thoughts on this match, sir?
This one is the only one that I'm sort of like not giving 100% of my attention to. It's the beginning of the night, right? And I'm just settling in. But they went out there to do this right and have a big blow off match.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed with this match and what they did. I didn't have the utmost interest, at least in like the feud for the most part, but
Yeah.
I was like, let's see what this cage match is gonna be like, and they did pretty well.
I mean, in the sense that like we're hitting some big old moves, and we're like, always love to see like the cage being used. One thing, Jack, that like I was trying not to let ruin the time I was having. It's a cage match, and they both committed in the video package to destroy the other one, right? And then Trish immediately tries to escape. You're like, what happened to destroying Becky? Like you said it with all the conviction in the world, and just try to book it, So they go after each other eventually, but that first part was a little weird.
Yeah, I did like you said, I liked how they utilized a lot of the different parts of the cage, and there was that part where Becky hit that superplex from like the top rope. That was pretty crazy. And then obviously we get involvement from Zoe Starks.
Yep.
I forget. She prevents Becky from trying to leave and all that.
Right.
But she fights back.
At some point, Becky is like, knocking Trish against the fence, right? And like she's already developing like a nasty bruise on her forehead that she posts a picture of the next day.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was like, "Oof, man, that looks pretty bad."
Jim Ross always said that, like, like the 10 punches in the corner, right? Like, it's got to leave DNA. You know what I mean? Like, if you punch a guy 10 times, there should be some visual, like, evidence that a man was struck 10 times in the face. I thought of that right away because, like, oh, we made contact with that cage.
Yeah. And then, oh gosh, what ends up happening? I'm trying to remember how Becky gets the win.
I believe we go for a manhandle slam from the top rope, an avalanche manhandle slam.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, hits that and then walks out the cage.
Yep.
Oh no! Wait, does she get the pin? Wait, does she pin her or does she walk out the cage? I forget.
She pins.
She pins. Yeah, that's right. And then afterwards, we get interaction between Stark and Trish Stratus. Stratus slaps Zoe Stark, and that's when she hits her like reverse spinning GTS, if you want to call it. I forget like what exactly they call it.
The Z360.
Yeah, and Trish.
I've only seen that move hit like 3 times total, Jack, but it looks so devastating each time.
Yeah, and Trish really, sold this one really well.
In fact, maybe it wasn't even the cage at all that left that giant welt on her for it. Maybe it was this move, the Zoe Stark's knee to her face.
Yeah, absolutely crazy move. And then, I wonder if this was like the last we see of Trish. Just because, unlike how we see with a lot of like the male legends who come back, like whenever we've seen the women's legends come back, it's usually for, to use the phrase, like a cup of coffee. Like when Lita showed up, it was very briefly. So I wonder if this is the end, especially now that we see, Zoe start getting like a rub by taking out Stratus.
I don't know. Was Trish on Monday Night Raw? Probably not, right?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't have seen anything.
I guess let's wait and see. I like WWE's post on. You calling it Twitter, Jack? Or you calling it X?
I still refer to it as Twitter.
Let us. And so Twitter, they posted a video of that superplex, but they called it a super duperplex. Nice.
Yeah, very good steel cage match though. Really enjoyed that one.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, I didn't know this. Maybe they mentioned on the pre-show or just before the show took place, and I just never heard about it. But the Payback host is John Cena, and he comes out to the ring before the match, and he gets into this spat with the Miz, you know, and that leads to Cena saying that, well, since he's the host, he makes the decision, and so he's going to be the special guest referee for the upcoming match between the Miz and LA Knight. And, you know, Miz tries to tell him, you know, he can't do that and that he's not even dressed properly to be a referee, and that's when someone comes in and hands Cena the referee shirt.
Because that's how you do it. That's how it works, Jack. Unless you're wearing the stripes, you can't officiate a match.
Oh, man. Yeah, no lie. And then we get that part where Miz is saying no, and Cena just keeps saying yeah back to him, and then that cues LA Knight to come out for the match.
Yep.
And that starts the match. Sir, what do you think of this match?
The match went, I think, a little long.
I definitely felt that, too, in certain points where I was like, this is kind of dragging a little bit in the sense of, like, at least with what the story they were trying to tell, it felt like it was dragging longer than the story required.
I'll tell you what, and I thought they wanted to get the crowd to a point they were at from the beginning. Yeah. Because as soon as the match starts, Jack, they start trading, you know, punches, and the crowd immediately starts the boo yeah thing, you know? Boo Miz. They're not doing just a normal yeah. Like, this is important, Jack. Just like Bray Wyatt's, he's got the whole world in his hands. Like, just like the New Day's clap, clap, clap. You ever heard about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, they made a specific clap, so they knew that they were giving them the specific New Day clap. They're going, boo, and yeah. And that was right at the beginning. And I'm like, okay, what are we still here for? They already like him. They just want to do the bits. They just want to do the bits, Jack. And things really are dragging until we get to the bit.
Yeah, I definitely felt that. And then obviously, you know, there's the whole story of, like, Cena's the special guest referee. And he's kind of ticking both guys off, even though he's just doing his job as referee. But both guys think he's, like, having it out for either one, you know?
Yeah. It was weird. And I wonder, like, does this mean Knight versus Cena at some point?
I could see it happening.
Yeah?
Potentially. I mean, I've heard rumors that Cena's going to be, like, on SmackDown for a bit.
I heard that, too.
Yeah, so I could definitely see it happening. But to get to the finish of the match, we get a near fall with the Miz hitting the skull crushing finale. But then, what's it called? Knight ends up coming back and countering and hits his BFT, I think is what he calls it, for the win. And then after the match, we get that sort of post-match segment to tease where you have, like, LA Knight kind of mouthing off to Cena before they shake hands, and Cena raises his arm to show that, you know, he's the victor and all that.
John Cena, the champ, right? Like, he doesn't care what microphone picks his voice up. He's like, this is your moment. And he walks away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before we get that blunt force trauma, we get the elbow. The LA Knight, elbow.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what anyone ever wants. That's all they want. Just, I want to say the thing. Point. Let me say the thing. Miz. No one needs to be reminded, Miz, that you're a good wrestler. LOLOG. Look at my DDT into another DDT.
But we move on to our next match, which is for the United States Championship. It's champion Rey Mysterio defending against former champion Austin Theory. What did you think of this match, sir?
I did not think much of it.
Yeah, I was very much thoroughly checked out of this match simply because if you thought the last one was dragging, this one dragged even more simply because of the fact of what is going on with Austin Theory. What is his direction? What is his character at this point? What are they trying to do with him, you know?
Yeah, I didn't think, Ray wasn't losing, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And you know what I realized? Like, Austin Theory, like, I'm looking for that character, that motivation, right? A-Town, downtown. A-Town stands for what, Jack?
I think Atlanta.
I think so too. Is there anything inherently Atlantean about him?
I don't think so either.
You know, I think we took a lot away from him. You remember the selfies? I don't
Yeah.
know that. Like, and they gave it to Grayson Waller. But yeah, this one was a slog. I'm happy for Rey Mysterio. And isn't it funny that in his celebration with the LWO, Santos Escobar has got him in his shoulders. And aren't you just waiting for that Bautista moment with those guys?
Yeah. And then similar with Theory, yeah, where it's just like they've taken so much away from him, and I'm like, I wonder what they could do to salvage him. And like, a part of me wants to say, reunite him with the Way, because at least that gave him a comedic side and element to him. But
Yeah.
they're not on TV for like the most part. So it's like, I don't know what you do with him if you can't stick him with the Way, who barely get TV time.
If not the Way, I think you stick him with somebody. You know what I mean? I think like he
Somebody
has not a faction, a partner, a heater, like a big guy.
Yeah,
Like
someone
Ricky
he can
Starks
play
and
off of.
like somebody to help him, even though he don't need no help.
Yeah.
He needs to start going. He got away again. Arrgh.
And then another thing that my dad pointed out during the match that I do agree that WWE has to get back to. He was stating that like the United States Championship needs some type of identity to it as a title, something that differentiates it from the other divisions or titles. And I thought that was a fair point to bring up, because it's like the Intercontinental title used to be the workhorse title, the one you saw a lot more technicality with, a lot more workhorse matches and all that, and stories centered around wrestling. The U.S. title could use something like that, where it's like, whether it's a faster pace style of wrestling, whether it's just something to differentiate it, something to give it an identity.
Interesting. Creates a lot of opportunities for cynicism when you're like, what kind of identity could the United States Championship foster? How about a divisive one where whoever's fighting have to be polar opposites in some way, some extremes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or every match has to be decided with some type of extreme stipulation. And speaking of extreme stipulations, our next match, undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships champions Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn defending against the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and Damian Priest.
That was an expert transition, Jack.
Yeah, right on the fly. Didn't even plan that at all. But I've seen a lot of people heading into this match. Oh, like what I forgot to mention, this is a Pittsburgh or a Steel City street fight, I believe is what they called it. And from what I've seen from people online, like heading into the match, a lot of people weren't too excited, because from what I've heard from people, this combination plus like a couple other wrestlers has basically been the main event of Raw for like the past month and a half.
I get that sense as well, just based on what I review, like what I read on week to week. But have not watching the weekly product myself. This was fresh to me.
Exactly. That was what I was about to say too. That's how those people feel. But as someone who hasn't seen a single match between the two of them, I'm excited for this one to see how it plays out.
And even though I haven't seen the weekly product, right? I'm pretty sure we saw a lot go down here that wasn't happening on Raw. Even if they were tagging with Cody or Riddle, they were doing things here that I'm certain they saved for this.
Yeah, definitely. But what were your thoughts on this match, sir?
Oh, this was pretty close to my match of the night.
I definitely felt. I definitely felt the same way watching it, where I was just very interested and intrigued with a lot that happened in it. Personally, I started looking through my list of like what matches have I enjoyed the most this year, And
Yeah.
surprising to me, I didn't see a whole lot of tag wrestling on it. So I may have to go back and review, but I will say this week was very special in the sense that between AEW's All Out, WWE's Payback, and Stardom even had a show. I ended up watching the matches throughout those 3 shows, and I left this weekend having a men's tag match of the year candidate with this one, a women's tag team match of the year tournament, and my overall match of the year candidate.
Oh my!
So I really enjoyed this week, and so yeah, I may have to go back and watch some of the tag wrestling that's occurred throughout the year. But I think this one is like my the top 10 contender list, because I can't think of any other tag team match from the men that I enjoyed quite as much as this one.
The WrestleMania Night 1 main event, Usos versus Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, just to put out there.
Do you notice the common denominator, I guess you could say?
Hey, listen, I hear these guys take their craft very seriously. So, I mean, I think it showed.
Yeah. Go rattling off some spots.
Yeah.
You had the spot where they put the trash can on Balor and took turns hitting him with the kendo sticks.
Mm-hmm. I love this where they're hidden from the camera because the Judgment Day have reunited with Dominic, and they're like, let's go get him. And when they pans back to see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they've done like a costume change, and now they're dressed as Pittsburgh Penguin, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was a great reveal.
Yeah, I love that spot. And then what could potentially make this a match of the year candidate? Oh, it just has Kevin Owens bleeding all over the place out of nowhere. That caught me off guard. The fact that he was bleeding and that they took they let it sit. Like that was the crazy part to me. They didn't immediately have him wipe it off. They like let it sit and let a lot of those visuals show of him having that blood on his face.
Mm-hmm. Jack, you ever played a video game where you knew that if you entered a certain part of the map that you would activate an enemy?
Oh, yeah.
It happened twice, but I love Dominic Mysterio's interference both times it happened, because it was like they got into that part of the arena where you activate Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah, oh man, that was fun. What else? I'm trying to remember some of the other spots. Obviously, there was the one where they were battling out in the crowd. Like
how about the old senton by Kevin Owens onto Dominic Mysterio, who was on a tape?
Yeah, that was crazy. Owens almost like missed him, but he just barely got him.
And my favorite part of the spot isn't the senton itself, but that Kevin Owens scales like in 3 steps that crowd there, like that area. I thought he was going to climb them stairs and Dominic Mysterio was going to take a nap on that table, but no, like I don't know what's there. If they're like cabinets, or he just with 3 steps, he's up there ready to jump.
Yeah, did it with such swiftness, and then there was just so much chaos. Like JD McDonough comes out of nowhere to break up the pin. And
saves the whole match for Judgment Day.
Yeah, and then Rhea comes out and spears Owens through the barricade.
When Rhea comes out, I'm the most surprised because she has a match later on. I'm like, she's not going to interfere. But no, now the whole Judgment Day are out here, Jack.
Yeah. And that's when we get like the final spot where Zayn hits Balor with a Luva kick, and then the pin gets broken up. We get Damian Priest using his Money in the Bank briefcase on Sami Zayn, and that allows Balor to get the pin. New undisputed tag team champions.
How frustrating is it for you, Jack, to hear Michael Cole say Judgment Day, and hear Finn Balor say Judgment Day have all the gold?
Yeah.
They put it on social media. They said it again on Raw. It's not true, Jack. I think what they mean is everyone in Judgment Day has gold, which also isn't true unless you say that JD McDonough is not a member. And unless you say that those tag team belts aren't gold. It's just so frustrating. How many times they were able to say it here and then later in the interview spot. I'll talk about it then.
Yeah. It's the little things that matter in wrestling.
But kudos to the Judgment Day. I'm really excited for them.
Yeah, what a turnaround for the Judgment Day, you know?
A year, right? A year ago today, right? They didn't have anything. They just got a Dominic. And here they are looking really, really strong.
Yeah. Thoroughly enjoyed this match.
I did too. And for one of your favorite tag team matches of the year, no one tagged anybody.
Next on the night, it's not actually a match. We get Cody Rhodes and Grayson Waller doing the Grayson Waller effect. And we see the two talking to one another, playing off one another. And then we get a subsequent announcement from Cody Rhodes. And that is to reveal that Monday Night Raw has made a trade. And that is, I guess they called it a trade. They get Jey Uso.
It's the newest member of the Raw roster.
Yeah, and he has his own new theme.
What do you think of the theme, Jack?
I find it more funny than, good, if you want to say.
I found it hilarious. I didn't hear Jimmy's on Friday. I don't know how different it is, but to hear Jay's was an experience.
Yeah, and then Waller tries, talking smack, and he eats a super kick.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it all. And I'll quickly mention this because I just mentioned how it's the little details that matter. I saw people posting quite a lot about it, so that's how I saw on Raw. Cody was essentially, I think it was actually Sammy. He had an interaction with Jay, and then all these different baby faces were coming out, and Sammy was trying to get them to be friendly in a sense with Jay. And I think it was both Drew and Riddle. They held up the continuity that, hey, just because you're a good guy now and aren't a part of the bloodline doesn't mean we forgot what you did to us during that time.
So I'm wondering most about why Cody made the announcement, right? Why it seemed like he got Jay moved over to Raw, because because he was giving Jay a look, not a smile. And I'm like, what's his deal with Jay? And of course, he only cost him the biggest match of his career in the main event of Night 2 of WrestleMania against his cousin, right?
Yeah.
And so I wondered what the deal was. But, you remembering this as a trade, Jack, it wasn't announced on Saturday as a trade. It was announced on Monday that somebody's going to SmackDown. And you never guess who people suspect who's going to SmackDown in Jay's place.
Cody.
It's gotta be. He's pulling the strings, so he's back in the picture for that, story that he's going to end.
Yeah. Although
I'm like, that makes a world of sense to me that he would finagle this deal to get him back over there.
Yeah. I will say, I don't know why he's going through all that trouble when he could just simply show up on Friday, since they don't care about the draft rules.
You know what? I tell you this. If when he gets there, there's going to be one less member of that family he needs to deal with,
Yeah.
He put him on Monday.
Yeah.
Before we move on, Jack, I got to say that the original Uso Brothers theme song was down since day one-ish. Down since day one-ish. And now it's down since, now it's just me. Down since. Now it's just me.
Oh, man.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, man. But after that, we move on to, what a surprise, sir. Another women's match on a pay-per-view card.
Whoa!
An absolute rarity, it seems, nowadays.
Then we got two.
We got Rhea Ripley defending her Women's World Championship against Raquel Rodriguez. And a lot of people are interested in this because it seems like whenever people are good friends behind the scenes, they put together some magic on screen.
How many minutes we got?
Oh, this looks like it's about 5 minutes.
I don't know if we want to bust a Tony Khan and shortchange the women for their efforts here tonight.
Yeah, I definitely don't think so, but how about to best utilize our time? Let's talk about a portion here. Open the next episode with whatever thoughts we have, just because I feel like there's still so much to talk about.
Oh, there's so much to talk about. But, what stood out to me right away from this match, I picked up that the two of them brought up Liv Morgan, so I love that story. Besides the want to be champion, Raquel Rodriguez is also a former tag team champion with Liv Morgan, who Rhea Ripley has beaten up a few times.
Yeah.
So I like that being brought up, in the drama of the match.
Yeah, and I can't remember if they mentioned it as well, but I need to look back at the video package if they did want to see if they mentioned it, but I wanted to hear more reference a bit to NXT, because I feel like that's something WWE forgets at times, is that like they can reference the NXT stuff, and I want to say they did show like the different moments that like the two had it in NXT. I know they started showing like the photos of like the two like being best friends and all that.
Yes.
So
I don't know what you're talking about, Jack. I remember Rhea Ripley really tearing the house down with the Raquel Gonzalez, but I don't think she's ever tangled with Miss Raquel Rodriguez. I could say, Jack, that I recall them flashing back to those moments, their initial encounters, their War Games encounter. I remember those clips.
Yeah. So definitely a lot to work with here, and like I said, a lot of times it's worked out best when you have, for the most part, two people who are real great friends. Especially because I like what someone said, where it's like when you're real great friends with someone, you kind of come to the agreement that like, yeah, we can lay it in harder,
Oh yeah. Oh, and also Raquel is, as she's just such a formidable opponent for Rhea, right? Like we've seen Rhea against some smaller foes. This was a good change of pace.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when we've seen in the past, like against smaller foes like Candice LeRae and Zelina Vega, quick matches. More displays of dominance. Whereas this one, it's like she has a true tester. But getting the pre-match stuff out the way, tune into the next episode to hear about the actual match. But thank you all for joining for this one. Tune into part 2.